Hello everyone. Today we will review Holiday in the Wild. I thought was going to be a little bit cheesier than it actually ended up being, but it actually touched on some pretty serious issues, including poaching and the destruction of our wildlife and kind of what certain animals were making go extinct. The main focus on this movie, though, was elephants for sure. So basically, this movie starts out with the kind of like the cheesy Netflix beginning where there's like this family taking family photos, and then their son is going off for college in a day. It's August. They're getting ready for their Christmas cards, so they're obviously a wealthy enough family, or at least the dad has a very high-end paying job, so they're obviously doing fairly well for themselves. What else where was I going to go with that? Anyway, so their son goes off for college, he leaves, and then the mother says, Kate, to the father, that she knows things haven't been going well lately between the two of them. They haven't really been able to spend that much time together, so she booked them their second honeymoon in Africa. He then proceeds to tell her that he wants to be separated from her, that he's moving out, and he'll come for his things the next day, right after she has told him about their second honeymoon. So she decides to go on the honeymoon herself to Africa. She kind of, I guess, gets the spoils of the couple's retreat by herself, and then she's supposed to be taken on this kind of like safari tour the next day when she runs into this pilot at the restaurant she was in, and then she realizes that he is the pilot that takes her to her next destination. He makes a stop along the way to basically save this baby elephant because the mother has been killed for mother hasn't been killed for sport. She's been poached for her ivory because, like, I'm not really sure. Ivory, I guess, is a big thing in Africa. Maybe, obviously, because of the money it makes, right? So she then decides that she is going to help this elephant back to life, basically, because it is in bad condition after losing its mother. Kate used to be a vet, and what was the pilot's name? Derek. Derek was the pilot's name. So she decides to go to this animal sanctuary where they nurse all the animals back to health, and she gets the elephant named Malu or Mahu. I'm not really exactly sure on the pronunciation, but basically it translates into second son, because she does say to one of the caretakers there that she has children of her own, and he says, well, yes, human children, but this will be your first animal child, basically. So she takes care of this elephant throughout the entire movie, actually. And then the pilot and her start to have a romantic relationship, or at least they are attracted to one another, and obviously there's something there. And the girl, he's with a woman that is funding their project. Eventually, because Kate gets into the picture, he ends up breaking up with her because he's not really sure. Derek ends up breaking up with this other woman because he says to her that he's not really sure what they're doing exactly, but he can't do it anymore. So she decides to cut the funding for their sanctuary. He pleads with her not to do it, but obviously she said it's not about the elephants for me, so obviously she was just wanting to get him out of the deal, I guess, was her part to play in that. She didn't really care about saving the animals. She just wanted him. So, yeah, she wasn't really the best woman to be with anyway. So, unfortunately, Kate's plan was never to stay as long as she did. So she says she's going to go back. At one point in the movie, she decides to stay. 3 months later, finally she gets the papers that her husband is filing for divorce. So she stayed 3 extra months. Her son is able to fly over. His dad gave him a ticket to fly over and see his mom. So he gets to spend a little bit of time with her. He tells her that he wants to pursue music instead of going to college. She kind of pushes him more towards going to college, which I didn't really necessarily agree with. You should always push your children to do what they want to do, not what you necessarily want them to do, I guess. So, anyway, she does kind of twist it a little bit in her favor, but also it would help him if, I guess, he was in college for at least something musical, like a musical degree. At least he'd be ahead of the game a little bit there. So she's not a completely horrible mother in that sense. But she does leave, and then she finds out about the cutting of the funding for the sanctuary. So she goes around New York where she lives and is able to raise enough money to at least get the sanctuary into the next year. And then at the end of the movie, 5 months after she's left, she suddenly comes back to Africa, gets a one-way ticket, sells her apartment, gets a one-way ticket, and comes back to Derek. And then I guess that's where she's going to end up staying for basically the rest of her life, because she releases her elephant back into the wild. And then it kind of has this little message at the end that the elephant population has declined by, I think it was 62% over the last X amount of years. So that was kind of an interesting statistic to put up at the end of the movie, and then that said something about contacting a wildlife service to obviously donate or help out. But yeah, this movie was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I would give it about a 7 out of 10, because the first probably about 30-40 minutes seemed to really drag before the story finally started to pick up as to what kind of storyline they were going to go with for this movie. And it was actually a really interesting story because it was cultural, I guess, in a sense. So it wasn't like your typical romance movie, I would say. At least it had some sort of other element to it that it had a good enough storyline that the romance wasn't the main focus. Let's just go with that. So yeah, but a 7 out of 10 just because it did take what seemed like, even though it was probably only the first half an hour, seemed like longer to actually get into the actual story. So that's why I would give it a 7, just because it did take that long. And some of the acting wasn't really the greatest because it is just a Netflix film, I do believe. I do believe it is just a Netflix film. Well, I don't have it up anymore, but I think it was just a Netflix film. So yeah, sometimes the acting isn't as great as a Hollywood-made film because they kind of, I think, sometimes they push out the Netflix films a little too fast or do the filming a little bit too fast, and they could have went back and touched up some of the scenes. But other than that, there weren't too many flaws with this movie. It had a good storyline, and, you know, you're kind of rooting for them to get back together at the end of the movie because things aren't really that great for her at home anyway. Obviously, she's divorced. She's a single mother. Her son can probably come visit her anytime he wants to, because I'm sure his dad won't say no to flying him out to see his mom. And he did get to fly the plane a little bit, I guess, in this movie, so who knows, maybe he'll get his pilot's license and he'll just be able to fly out to her anyway. That's just a prediction. That didn't obviously happen in the movie, but anyhow, that's all I have to say about this film. Please like, share and subscribe, and comment down below if you've seen this movie, what your thoughts are on it, and if you haven't seen this movie, go and watch it. Don't let this review deter you from going to see the movie, although it shouldn't, because this is just one person's opinion. You could have a totally different opinion of the movie. It could be a 10 out of 10 for you, but for me it's a 7 out of 10, and that is all I have to say about this film, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.